This episode's called "Why Are Boomers So Naive?" They have an obsession with walls. That's why.
Have you ever wondered why boomers are so naive? This is something that I have thought about quite often. When you see these stories of boomers sending their life savings to Brad Pitt, or grandmas sending $1,000 in Walmart gift cards to some guy in India, which is a more mundane example, then you are probably acutely aware of this problem that is plaguing society, which is the naivety of boomers. It seems like boomers are kind of unique, and I guess I can use this a bit loosely, right? Like, we can include Gen X as well. They're kind of like boomer light. They have a lot of the similarities, but not quite as extreme and exaggerated as the real boomer generation. But they also have quite a lot of these foibles where they seem to lack skepticism at our current society.
I missed that word.
And, you know, a more recent example is how boomers are just getting totally one-shotted by AI. They seem to really...
Boomers and boomer light, one-shotted by AI. You have a dog and a kid on skis, and this boomer here, Bonnie, says, "This made me smile. So sweet. This heart emoji. So adorable. Boomers are fucked. Boomers and boomer lights, bro. It's about to be scam city in boomers. You can take pictures of their own kids and send a video in and be like, Mom, help me. Mom, I've been kidnapped. Send $10,000 right away to India." They can mimic your voice and everything. This is wild.
Have a problem making a distinction between something that is real and something that is AI, to the point where it's just kind of comical. And I think the underlying reason is that we are currently now living in a low-trust society, whereas boomers grew up in a high-trust society. So they are functionally foreigners in this world that we live in today.
That's so true.
And I know that's a big claim, but let me flesh this point out, because I think when you understand this, you'll kind of get why boomers are the way they are. If you ever look at any media that boomers would have grown up with, take, for example, you can go check this out yourself. Search on YouTube, Leave It to Beaver. You know, watch this show. This was like a big show that boomers watched, right? And something that you'll really quickly realize is that this is weird. You know, this is weird to us, right? The people talk in a very strange cadence. They have a totally alien frame of reference to us.
Yeah.
They're so all of the cultural touchstones that we just don't really have with them. It's just such it may as well be made by an alien, right? It's just so different from our worldview and, what we experience and how we talk and, just our general worldview is just so different to the time that this content was made. If you just transported me to the Leave It to Beaver world, I would just be so fucking weird, right? They would look at me like I was an alien, right? The way I talk, my frame of reference, just the simple mannerisms that I have would just be so strange to people in this generation, right? I would just be a total freak if you transported me to the 1960s, right? This is what has actually happened. These boomers came from this time. Do you see what I'm saying, right? So of course, they are going to be ill-equipped for this society that we are living in today. It's just so different to what they grew up with. They are not equipped for how low-trust society has become. The Anglosphere society today of UK, USA, the Western Europe, right? I think we're closer to Brazil than we are to the world that boomers grew up in.
Yeah.
I literally, right? I think if a Brazilian came over to USA, he would have more in common with Americans than a boomer would. I literally think that would be the case. You'd have more in common with that Brazilian guy. And that's kind of crazy, right?
Nailed it.
Boomers are even more foreign than a foreigner would be. When you really think about it, they didn't grow up with the internet. They didn't grow up with smartphones, content creation, a lack of gatekeepers and professions. They just don't have a frame of reference for them, right? So for boomers, a lot of the world and society that we live in today is just, it's so alienating to them, right? A grandma that watched Leave It to Beaver back in the day is not equipped for an Indian call center that is mechanically designed to extract as much money from her as possible via Walmart gift cards. She's just not equipped for that level of low trust, right? she'd never encounter this many liars back in her day, right? And I think like this naivety of boomers, it materializes in many ways, right? Like a lot of the world ultimately still run by boomers. Like that's just how it is. Yeah, there's some crypto billionaire millennials around and, tech startup guys that are millennials and maybe some Gen Z, but ultimately still the world is run by boomers. So a lot of our social instruction and institutions that we get informed by is by, logically going to be kind of out of touch, right? A good example is like the emphasis on college, right? The public zeitgeist still believes that college is like this sacred cow, like it's this institution where if you go to, you're just going to become middle class, just like by default. And yeah, that was true in the day of boomers. Like college really was a go-to middle class ticket for anybody, right? Like you could go to college and that was like a huge fucking deal, right? Having a degree that kind of guaranteed you a middle class lifestyle, a white picket fence lifestyle.
Imagine that.
And obviously this just isn't the case anymore. It's just not the case. It was back in their day, which is why there's so much of an emphasis on people going to college. They still think it's this sacred cow institution where, you're going to go there and you're going to become something. You're going to become like some high flyer, like just going to college and getting a degree. I've even done like some napkin math on a generic college degree in America. And I remember I calculated it to be like, you would break even on a generic college degree in like 25 years or 27 years. It was some ridiculous length of time for a college degree to actually pay off. And I'm including time lost by you not participating in the labor force, right? That's something that very rarely gets accounted for. But, if you're spending 4 years in college, that's 4 years you're not working and climbing the ranks in a career, right? And this napkin math is assuming that the guy that didn't go to college just simply never got a promotion or any advancement in his earning potential. And even then, it takes like a college degree 25 years, like a quarter of a century to break even. So, according to boomers, that isn't risky. That isn't risky, but starting like a YouTube channel or getting into content creation is this big risk to them, right? So yeah, like a lot of our social instruction is still under the assumption that the world boomers grew up in still exists. And on the flip side of boomers being naive as to how low trust society is now, they also are skeptical at things that are actually really safe and beneficial, which is really fucking annoying. How many times have you had like you've overheard like your grandma saying, "Oh, she doesn't trust putting her payment information online," or like, or some just like vague like skepticism about something that is safe? You've probably all heard this, right? Where they are like skeptical at the wrong things while trusting the things that are actually dangerous to them, like Bitcoin, for example. In the Bitcoin obituaries, like legacy media has said that Bitcoin has died over 400 times. The first article that came out of boomers about this was when Bitcoin was 23 cents. Bitcoin has been dead, according to boomers, since it was 23 cents a coin.
Damn.
And if you're living under a rock, Bitcoin is now over $100,000 a coin. So, doing some rough math here, if you had like $100 of Bitcoin when that article came out, you'd have $40 million today liquid.
Fuck, bro, we fucked up, chat. Why didn't we see it? I was too busy gaming, dicking around, chasing pussy, bro. I got biggest L of my life, dude. $1 fucking dollar. I had at that point, I got in a car accident. That exact time when Bitcoin was like 20 cents, I got in a car accident, some shit like that. And my lawyer won me 20 G's, $20,000. Like an idiot, I paid off my credit card and used the cash for something else. I had in my hand 20 stackaroos. I could have been a fucking billionaire. Nope. I had a liquid cool PC tower and fucking hose. Ugh, fuck.
Man, and this is the thing they were skeptical about. It seems like everything is just calibrated incorrectly with boomers. Like, all the safe things they're skeptical about, all the things that are dangerous they're not skeptical about. It's just so fucked up. And you gotta really like keep an eye on like if you care about your Gen X or boomer parents, you got to keep an eye out on them. Like you got to you got to really like keep an eye on like what they're like trusting and what they're doing, right? Because it is like it is like a really strange world to them, right? They're not like equipped in the same way that a generation that grew up with the internet would be for this world that we live in. And the AI stuff, man. Oh man, don't even get me started. It is so ridiculous how they are just like blindly trusting of anything that's like put in front of them with a vague sense of authority behind it. Like it's just ridiculous. It's so ridiculous how trusting they are of authority. I think they were like really drilled to be like authoritarian when they were like children, and they kind of like carried that. They kind of carried that blind trust and authority that, for better or worse, like Gen Z just doesn't seem to have nearly to the same degree, right? Well, anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.
Definitely enjoyed it. Dude, crushed it. My aunt separated from her husband and started talking to this man on a dating app. She began sending money to him. You see, he's a doctor with a mansion in New York, but he's currently living overseas. And as soon as he makes it back to the USA, he's going to marry her. My aunt, who's in her 50s and had several medical problems, believes a rich doctor is going to marry her. Oh, but she got my grandmother to send God knows how many hundreds of dollars, and my dumb brother gave her several thousand because they will be paid back when he arrives back in the USA. The entire time I flat out laughed and told him it's a fake scam, and I was treated as if I insulted the real relationship. Holy hell. What the fuck? Wow. They even trust institutions and politicians. Boomers during the 90s and 2000s will constantly tell us not to believe everything we see on the internet. What a damn 180, LMAO. Can't remember when I heard it, but this stuck with me. No one has had more opportunities and experiences than baby boomers, and yet so little wisdom to show for it. Oh. After you've been exposed to RuneScape, you know what a low trust society means. I don't even know what that means, but okay. They chose psyops, and now their ego is committed a sunk cost fallacy. Yeah. A large part of it is cockiness. Often they were successful not because they were smarter, but because they grew up in a time of plenty, because they think they are smart even though they weren't. You can't tell them anything due to their inflated ego. Couple that with negative effects of aging, it's a bad combination. Damn. One of my great fears is that the world will continue to grow more deceptive, more filled with yet more sophisticated scams. And by the time I'm an old man, I too will be falling for scams that the kids will call obvious. Yeah, because they grew up in a high trust society and haven't realized they destroyed it. They literally voted for a world we aren't allowed to inherit. I'm a 66-year-old boomer in Houston, Texas, and went to Leave It to Beaver grade school. When it was time for middle school, desegregation was underway. That middle school was like a mini prison in an absolute war zone. I think that's why I relate with so many younger folks. My high trust perspective was completely wiped out. Wow. Back in 2015 or so, my grandpa, or grandma, excuse me, then age 65-ish, asked me how this advertising agency sent me mail. I haven't given them my address. And she had a look of horror on her face when I mentioned that everyone's address is instantly available online. She didn't understand computers and didn't have the eyesight or will to learn it. Also, she didn't understand nobody cares about her address. Wow. 60-year-old younger boomer here. The reason that boomers are suckers is because they lived their formative years in an America that was much more civil and honest than it is today. The parents of the boomers behaved as if they would have to account for every bad deed one way or another. But some boomers act as if people who get scammed are just suckers and losers. The culture changed. Hollywood put out movies that celebrated criminals. Movies like Bonnie and Clyde and The Godfather. Crime started rising. Boomers had a hard time adjusting because they were raised in a polite, high-trust society. Doubting people and regarding them with suspicion was considered incredibly rude. It was socially unacceptable not to trust people, even strangers. It was unacceptable not to invite a stranger into your house or to refuse to answer their questions. My late Aunt Claire took out subscriptions to dozens of magazines that she didn't want because she was taught to never be the first to hang up the phone when someone calls. She thought that she had to stay on the line until they hung up. Well, They would just keep talking and talking until she gave in and subscribed. She simply couldn't bring herself up to hang up the phone. That's crazy. Long story short, boomers really had it great. Not only was America safer and richer, people were much better behaved. Not just street people, business people, and professionals of all kinds. Fewer things were outsourced, so they weren't exposed to scam artists from all over the world. It's too bad they didn't pay it forward. Wow. That's an enlightening statement. Wow. That's crazy. What a different society that is to live in. We can't even fathom it. We live in such a low trust shithole of a society that you have to have eyes in the back of your head. You have to look at people with suspicion, right? It's an alien culture for real. You trusting people by default, that's how you get fucked over, bro. Expecting corporations, companies, expecting people, businessmen, anybody, right? Like just a courtesy of not being the first to hang up, just by default, assuming that people are good people. Now, you can't trust a fucking thing, dude. And honestly, that was probably their goal. Whoever psyops society like this. This is how once you turn a high trust society into a low trust society, getting it back to high trust seems like an impossible task until you reintroduce something like, a military authoritarian aspect to society. It seems like we fucking pissed away the good democratic republic that we had. And I don't know if it's ever coming back. I think it's changed forever. It's sad, actually, when you think about it.